And so it keeps the nervous system on. It keeps your body wired but tired. It's almost like I try to sleep, or if it's impacting sleep, I try to go to sleep, but I'm not getting deep, restful sleep. It will usually be because there's something happening at a physical level that's preventing you from being able to drop into rest and recovery. And adrenal fatigue is a really common one. I mean, 95% of our clients that we do lab testing for in our functional medicine practice will have adrenal fatigue. So it's very common when there's been a lot of chronic stress in a fast-paced, high-achieving, like giving to everyone else but not yourself way. Your body isn't fighting against you, it's fighting for you. So if you are noticing signs, signals, and you're either hating on them or you're ignoring them, which can also happen like when you feel like your body's fighting you, it's just like, if I just ignore that and move on, then that's fine.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Welcome back to Rainbow Skies for Teachers. Now, we all know teachers are overachievers in life. They're hard workers. They are often people pleasers. They're sometimes perfectionists, and they overall give their self to the job. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things until it starts affecting you as a person, because we need to remember that we are humans first and teachers second. Now, our guest today is going to talk to us all about this human side of being a teacher. Philly Bellette is an expert on body burnout, and she's going to share today some things to look out for if you're going into burnout. She's going to share some different ideas of how you can rest, recover, little bits and pieces that you can do throughout the day to help you, and overall give some really great insights and mindset changes. There are some things that she said in this interview and I was just like, this has changed the way that I look at it. And she drops a bomb at the very, very end that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to change the way that I see everything. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Philly. Teachers are some of the hardest working, most selfless professionals out there. From your perspective, Philly, why are they so vulnerable to burnout without even realizing it's actually happening?
Because of that. It is like, I see it's a very common pattern in teachers. So we do end up working with a lot of teachers. Plus I have a lot of family members that are teachers and friends, and my children go to school. And so we experience a lot of teachers in our world. But yeah, like burnout happens when there's not enough rest and recovery time to balance out what you're outputting. So whether that's performance-wise and helping other people-wise, and just like holding, if you think about in the classroom too, you're holding like children's emotions and like navigating all the differences, like the neurodivergent differences and special needs and, you know, just what's happening in their life as well. So teachers have a lot going on in the classroom. So already the brain and nervous system is on just from that alone. But then also if you're adding in patterns of selflessness, which often shows up as people pleasing too, or like putting everyone else first and you last, then it doesn't actually leave a lot of time for you to be able to come down at the end of the workday or even on the weekend in order to rest and recover. And you know your teachers better than I do, but like the people that I talk to tend to take a lot of work home as well. So they kind of do it. Oh, maybe not your teachers though. Maybe not the ones that work with you because you're providing them with the resources.
Yes, we want to try and save them time, but it doesn't mean that they're not filling that time with other things. Because one thing that teachers are really, really good at is making sure that that to-do list is never finished. There's always things that you can add on to that list.
Yes. And even, there's always more things to do. And also too, like we use a coaching frame. When I say we, my husband is also in our holistic health practice. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if there is a teacher, for example, showing up, working really hard, very selfless, like giving their all to their class and, you know, to how they're teaching, it's highly likely going to be showing up at home and socially as well. where you're kind of like the person that does all the things at home as well as working full time. And then like friends might, you might have a friend who had a baby and you're like, you're the one that comes with the casserole and, making sure that they're okay. So then you can see that if that's happening outside of work hours, then it leaves very little time for self-care, for rest, for recovery, for even connecting with yourself and listening into what your body and mind needs in order to be able to thrive at your best.
Yeah, I think with teachers, I think all high achievers, they don't give themselves that time to even realize that they might be getting into burnout, which is going to be my next question to you. You talk a lot about body burnout in busy, high-achieving people, and teachers might be listening to this saying, oh yeah, I do juggle a lot of things, but they don't really know what burnout actually looks like or feels like in the body because they're constantly giving to others and they're constantly in this cycle. So what does it look like?
Yeah, great. So I think about it can be on a spectrum. So on one side, I guess more earlier signs might be, and it is going to show up in 3 core ways. So energy, mood, and gut issues. So on a lower spectrum side, where it's the early signs, the early signals, that's often like your energy isn't as good as what it used to be. You might be waking up feeling tired, whereas in the past, it's like, oh, ready to get up, let's go. You might be having energy crashes. So it's just like, come on, hurry up, class finish, because I kind of need to go have a little lie down or a bit of a break. Or you might be getting to the end of the day and it's like 6, 7 p.m. and it's like, I need to go to bed now. So they're kind of like early signs that your energy levels are starting to deplete. On the other side, if that is left going on too long, that's often where like chronic fatigue syndrome and, more severe fatigue issues start showing up. You might also still be able to work. So at the spectrum on that side, it could be that you're so tired now and so burnt out that you actually have to stop working. Maybe you need to, have some... what's the word when you have time off because you're sick? Stress leave. Yeah. So they're literally, and again, we get a lot of teachers who have literally needed to take time off, including principals are probably quite up there as well, where they're like, I just can't do it anymore. Like my body, when I try to get into teaching or into the workspace, I'm getting so many signals and I just have to stop. And so, then they're using that time off to heal. But you could also be pushing through. So it might be that it's actually, I'm probably operating at 3 or 4 out of 10 energy and I'm exhausted, but I am pushing through, putting a smile on my face, try to still do all the things. That's a big red flag because at some point the body will say no for you. And it's like, we need rest now. We need some deeper healing. So that would be how it shows up with energy. Mood, again, if we're talking about on a spectrum, earlier signs would be struggling to respond to stresses the way that you used to. And that might be sounds, it might be light, it might just be like the amount of things that you used to be able to hold, you're finding it really overwhelming. You might be irritable, a bit snappy, feeling overwhelmed. And then if that goes on for too long unchecked, then that's often where people are getting diagnosed with clinical depression, anxiety, mood disorders. And then there's going to be a spectrum in between where maybe you don't get a diagnosis, but it's like, I'm just feeling like I have this feeling of fight, flight in my nervous system all the time, even when I should not be feeling that experience. So an example of that, I'm thinking of a teacher client at the moment. She will feel like that at school, but then even at home when she's just kind of like walking around, doing some cooking, she doesn't have any kids, so she doesn't have like that background noise. It's almost like her nervous system is still wired and firing. And that can be a really common sign. And then the third way that body burnout often shows up is in the gut. So that might be gut issues. And if it's early signs, it might be kind of like I used to be able to eat gluten and dairy, but now when I eat it, I'm getting like a bit of bloating or some gas or like some skin rashes or something showing up like that. On the other side, it could be full on irritable bowel syndrome, IBD, which is inflammatory bowel syndrome, which now needs kind of like medical intervention. Actually, it doesn't need it, but that's often where people go. And could be getting a lot of gut discomfort or systemic issues in the body. So when the gut's imbalanced, it actually causes a lot of inflammation. And that's where systemically it might also be showing up as body pain, migraines, headaches. Depending on the age of the teacher, perimenopause will often start ramping up with symptoms as well if someone's in the state of body burnout.
Okay, so those 3 areas, I was thinking about teachers. Fatigue, not great if you're in a classroom of 30 10-year-olds. You need to have the most energy that you could possibly have.
Yes.
Mood, not ideal if you're feeling snappy or lots of outside things are coming at you and that triggers you, because a lot of that happens in classrooms. You need to be patient. And then gut issues, from what you're saying about gut issues, also not ideal if you're a teacher and you need to be running to the toilet every 5 seconds, or you're having aches and pains in your body. Because it's quite a physical job. You're standing up, you're moving about, You're getting on the floor with the kids and things like that. So if anyone's feeling any of these early signs, what's something that they should do straight away to help with this?
So, I mean, I'd be like, contact a professional. But even before that, like especially if it's early signs, there's so much that you can do from a DIY perspective to help reset, so that you're not needing to then go on a full healing deep dive journey. But if you're noticing early signs, so I would get a bit curious around when you're noticing the signs, because sometimes there might be some external triggers that are impacting your internal stress response around those. An example of that might be there might be a child in your class. Or maybe it might be the way that somebody talks, or it might be another teacher. Now, we're not like pointing fingers to blame, but it's just useful to kind of see, is there any triggers happening that is outside of me that's actually impacting the way that I'm responding? Probably more so from the mood perspective, where it's just like, oh, overwhelmed, or like, oh, just had a fight-flight response. It also might be the to-do list. It might be the email inbox. It might be anything. So just getting curious around if there is anything that's kind of triggering the symptoms to acutely pop up. Now, if there is, the goal actually isn't to just like eliminate them. You'd probably have to leave your job if that was the case. And, you're welcome to do that. But I'd actually just start like getting a little bit curious. So there's some frames that I use if I'm having an interpersonal disturbance in my system, that I know that there's someone else outside of me that I'm just like, so a frustration with others is almost always a frustration with self. So this can be helpful.
Explain this to us.
Okay. A frustration with others is almost always a frustration with self. So everything that is happening around you is often a mirror reflection of what's happening inside of you in terms of how you're experiencing yourself in the world. So an example of that, like I'll take a real life example. My husband used to annoy the heck out of me with his big vision. Now, this is before I did a lot of like deeper healing inner work. And, there was nothing wrong with how he was being. It was actually like a beautiful trait, and he still has the trait and I love it. And it was also something that I was attracted to him when we first got together. But during a period of time when I was in body burnout and I was really dysregulated, it felt really unsafe. It was almost like oh, no, we couldn't do that. So whether it was changing up something big in the business or doing something different in our life or going on a holiday, that might have cost a few $1,000s, or, it would just cause so much fear and uncertainty in my nervous system. So it wasn't that he was causing me a disturbance. It was that my stress response was responding to something outside of me, but it was a me issue that I needed to sort out. Now, obviously, if there's something where you're in hopefully there's no listeners in like a toxic school environment, but they can be around sometimes with different leadership. That's kind of different when it's actually toxic. It's kind of like you need to remove yourself out of that environment or try really hard to advocate to change it. But I'm talking about kind of like these day-to-day things that can happen where it's like, constant triggering. Even with my kids, and this might be a teacher thing, so I found that I used to get really dysregulated when they were misbehaving, especially out in public. Now, it wasn't necessarily that they were the cause of all my stress and my burnout, but if a frustration with others is almost always a reflection of a frustration with self, or was that I was personalizing their behavior and I was making it mean something about me. So essentially, I felt like I was failing as a parent. I was a no good mum, and I was also embarrassed. I'm like, oh, now people are going to be judging me. And so again, if I'm just thinking about some of the teachers that we've worked with and questions and coaching and conversations we've had, like that comes up a lot because it's like I have to make sure that I'm ticking all the boxes. Otherwise, I'm going to either let my kids down in my classroom. I'm not going to be the best teacher that I could be for them. Or, maybe the other staff members, the other teachers or the principal or, someone like the admin people are going to think I'm no good. So when you can start kind of like understanding why you're responding in a dysregulated way to things that are happening around you, you have more power to actually change it. As opposed to just ditching a kid out of your classroom if they're annoying. It's kind of like, oh, hang on, there's some conversations I can have with myself that can affect this. So that's kind of like, a deeper metaphysical thing that someone could start doing from an awareness point of view. But also from a physical point of view, it's like, are you drinking water?
Now, this is a big one. I'm just going to stop you there just for 1 second, because one of the things I didn't do enough when I was in the classroom full time was drink enough water. And one of the reasons why is because I would drink water and then I'd need to go to the toilet.
Go to the toilet.
The time that you can go to the toilet. And one of the things I say that I love about my job right now is I can go to the toilet whenever I want.
Yes.
It's like it's a very low bar. So I know there's teachers out there not drinking enough water for that reason.
Yeah. It's a cultural thing as well. It's kind of like maybe the system needs to support teachers to be able to have more breaks to go to the toilet.
Yeah, because you're drinking water and you need to do that for your overall health.
Yeah. I could see that could be really possible. And obviously, if the person is struggling and it's like, I'm really dehydrated by the end of the day, it's going to affect energy. It's going to affect mood. At some point, it's going to affect the gut and cause more inflammation in the body. If there's a teacher that's listening that's like, I really would love to drink more water, then advocate for that. I could see that it could be as simple as there's a TA that pops into the classrooms or something. I don't know. Obviously I'm not a teacher, so it may or may not. Is that something that's possible?
Well, it depends on whether you're being supported or not. Another thing teachers do in primary school is that they often have a connecting door with another classroom. So I'm just thinking perhaps you say at 10 o'clock, can I have a toilet break? And so that the other teacher knows, because one of the things is you're interrupting the other class. But if you assigned a time, 10 o'clock every day, I need a toilet break, then that teacher's going to be prepared to come to the middle of the class and everyone's off doing what they need to do.
Yes. And this is a great strategy. And if you're noticing resistance or blocks around it, it will be something around the selflessness piece where you actually have to start looking at yourself. And what I actually find is a nice pivot there is you can't serve from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. So if you're depleted, you're burnt out, your body's sending you signals and signs that you need to look after you. At some point, you might not be able to do what you love or, teach and care for your children in your classroom and be the best teacher that you want to be. So if that kind of helps a teacher who really has this selflessness pattern to actually start putting themselves first and prioritizing themselves, that is a lovely step in the right direction where it's like, oh, I'll be able to help better when I look after myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's, it's probably 10 episodes, but there will be deeper unconscious core beliefs as to why you're not putting yourself first and not prioritizing your body and your mind and your wellness and your health as well. But I love that. I think come up with a plan where if my body's sending me cues and essentially when you're ignoring going to the toilet, you're disconnecting from your body, which also means you're disconnecting from other signals and sensations that are trying to constantly get your attention to change or to be looked after or to care for. So when you can start with something as simple as that, it actually helps to rebuild this connection with your body again and rebuild trust with self again so that you're more likely to fill your own cup up so that you can thrive and not just push through.
Yeah, that's some really practical advice. I think one of the things with teachers is that we have a culture where we put ourselves last. And it's taught at the very beginning because the other staff members are like that. They've had this culture for many years, and then the new staff members come in, and it's just like as an ongoing flow of teachers always come last. And I think mothers do this too. Mothers of young children fall into this trap as well of always putting themselves last. So putting themselves last, trying to be perfectionists, people pleasing, overdoing things are so common in teaching. We've spoken about the different traits that we need to look at for burnout. These sorts of things are the things that contribute to burnout. So rest alone is not going to fix these feelings of burnout, whether they're really beginning on the spectrum or all the way towards at the end. Why doesn't rest alone fix it? Why can't we just say, look, I'll rest on the weekend and I'll start back on Monday?
I would be curious around how often someone who is listening has said that to themselves, and have they actually given themselves permission to deeply rest? Probably not. So like, again, it's a pattern thing. When I was very unwell, I mean, this is why I do what I do, because I've had 3 major body burnout experiences where I was on the later spectrum of a chronic illness and health issues. And I found that I tried to rest, but like in terms of like just saying, oh, you know, doctor or a practitioner saying, you just need to give yourself rest. And I'm like, okay, so I take the kids down to the beach. But even while I was lying on the beach, my body and my nervous system wasn't resting because of all the patterns we were talking about before, like the selflessness, the overdoing, the perfectionism. That doesn't switch off by you just saying, I'm just going to go and rest. Like, it's a great start to choose to want more rest, but if you're noticing that you're not really switching off to get that deep rest, and it's almost like your brain is still going with all the things that you need to do on your to-do list, and then, I don't know, like for me, I used to get really guilty when I was with the kids or not with the kids. So if I was with the kids, I'd be like, oh, but like, what about all the things that I need to do at home and in my business? And then when I was working, I also felt guilty about that too, because like, so nothing ever felt safe or settled. So rest alone, if you can give yourself that and you're able to deeply rest, happy days. Like, give that to yourself, and that might be enough to switch off those early signals. But if you're really struggling to either like take action on the rest, or if you do try, your nervous system just feels like it's on, then there's 2 main things to look at. So when I think about the causes of body burnout, there's not either, it's one and the other. So there's going to be physical stresses and inflammatories, and there's also going to be metaphysical stresses and inflammatories. So things that kind of go beyond just the physical organs. So your unconscious mind, beliefs that you have about yourself, patterns and programming that you're running. So from a physical side, some people's bodies literally struggle to be able to get that deep rest because they might be in something called adrenal fatigue. Have you heard of adrenal fatigue, or would your listeners be pretty cluey in terms of what that is?
I've only ever heard it once by a mentor of both of ours, and I've always wondered what adrenal fatigue is.
Okay, well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So basically your adrenals are little glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they secrete your stress hormones, cortisol and DHEA. So cortisol rises when you're experiencing stress, but if you're regulated, you have balance in your life, you're generally pretty healthy and well, you have another hormone called DHEA, which comes up and it brings cortisol back into balance. And so essentially that means that when you're experiencing stress, that could be like fearful stress. It also could just be like high performance stress. Your body's able to return back to a state of calm. Now, when there's been a lot of chronic stress and you haven't been looking after yourself and you're experiencing these signs of body burnout, over time, these stress hormones actually deplete to the point that you're not able to regulate yourself back to a state of calm from a physiological perspective. And so it keeps the nervous system on. It keeps your body wired but tired. It's almost like I try to sleep, or if it's impacting sleep, I try to go to sleep, but I'm not getting deep, restful sleep. It will usually be because there's something happening at a physical level that's preventing you from being able to drop into rest and recovery. And adrenal fatigue is a really common one. I mean, 95% of our clients that we do lab testing for in our functional medicine practice will have adrenal fatigue. So it's very common when there's been a lot of chronic stress in a fast-paced, high-achieving, like giving to everyone else but not yourself way. If your teachers also have children children themselves. Like the moment that a woman starts having 2 or more kids, then they're more at high risk of adrenal fatigue, because having babies and breastfeeding and, sleepless nights also just sucks up these nutrients that help to support your adrenals. I mean, there's different body systems as well, but that's like a big one. Actually, another big one too is sometimes you can have neurotransmitters like dopamine or serotonin deplete. Again, we can do lab tests for those to look at the state of the brain. But if they're depleted, serotonin, for example, is a lovely peace. Like it helps you to feel peace and safety and feel good. And if that's depleted and your body's struggling to produce it, it can be really hard again to get that sensation of deep rest that your body needs in order to replenish and repair from a day of high stress work. Yeah, so that's the physical side of things. And then metaphysical, deeper root causes would be deep unconscious core beliefs that you have about yourself. So, for example, actually, I was a teacher at university. So before I got into the health space and before I got really sick, I ended up because it was kind of like my high overachieving pattern of, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I get really good grades. So I'm just going to keep studying and studying and studying until I do a PhD. And then where do I go from there? So I did a PhD in my early 20s, had a lot of internal pressure around it, a lot of imposter syndrome, but also as part of the PhD, I tutored in classrooms and lectured as well. And I found for me that this pattern of overdoing and overgiving and trying to be 110% and get all the things done. Yes, my body systems were burnt out, but also the reason why I was behaving that way was because I had a deep belief that I was weak and incapable, which consciously I had no idea about. Consciously, I actually thought I was pretty awesome. It's look at all the things I can do. I'm doing a PhD. But it was, my patterns were driven from a place of fear, essentially. It's now I have to try really hard so no one else figures out that I'm weak and incapable. If we talk back to the selflessness pattern, again, a lot of our clients, regardless if they're teachers or not, who have this pattern, often have a deeper belief around being potentially unlovable. And so there's a sensitivity around rejection. And so therefore it's I have to make sure I overgive and I really look after these people and I really love and care for these people. And, I teach these people at the best of my ability so that they like me. It's rarely that it's happening consciously, but a lot of this stuff will come from before the age of 7 and it just gets locked in the unconscious mind and the body. And that's what's driving the patterns. So if I connect that back to your original question around rest, it's if you have tried giving yourself space to rest and you're not doing it because it's no, there's other people I have to serve, or there's other things I need to do. Or if you do chunk out time, but it's I just feel agitated, I need to get back into work and into life, then there'll be deeper beliefs underneath that need identifying and essentially rewiring and let go.
Can I ask another follow-up question about rest? Because I think these days we get confused about what is rest and what isn't rest. Are there things that aren't rest, like sitting on the lounge and scrolling your phone? Would that be considered rest?
No, no. I mean, depends what you're scrolling on. No, I mean, if you're scrolling, I'm just picking up my phone right now. So if you're scrolling on the phone, your brain, there's so much research now around digital overload. And one of the reasons why there is more burnout these days is because of digital overload. So if you're scrolling on the phone, there's things flickering in your eyes, different images. There might be some things that might trigger you, like comparisonitis. There might also be some positive things too. But if you're moving through that, then from a neuroscience point of view, it's just overloading the brain. Our brains, when you think about caveman days and even 50 years ago, we weren't exposed, actually probably even 20 years ago, we weren't exposed to this much information. So it doesn't give your brain rest, even if your body might be resting on the couch. And also it's often a pattern of escapism as well, where either, you're escaping from something like a conversation that you need to have with yourself, but you don't want to have it, or something uncomfortable, or it's the way that you've just got into the habit and that's the way that you give yourself some respite, but it's not true respite.
Yeah. So let's talk about some true rest things that people could do. Would watching a movie be better than scrolling on your phone, or would reading a book be better than that?
A book will be better than a movie or a TV show. Like personally, and as a health practitioner, I know a lot of people like in the health space will say no screens 2 hours before bed. Now, I do agree with that. If someone is in like a deep healing phase, it's like, you know what, if we can reduce some stresses and you're able to do that and maybe read a book instead, that's going to be so much better for your brain and your adrenals and your melatonin production. Go for it. Now that I'm well, I pretty much watch Netflix every night and I love it. And I think it depends on what you watch. So if it's something that's lighthearted, like a Hallmark movie.
Oh, I'm
or
so
like
into those. I'm so into the Hallmark movies.
Yeah. or a romance or like a drama that's not too thriller, kind of like intense, then I think that could be lovely. Also, if you're doing it with someone else, so then you're also getting some sort of social connection and interaction, whether it's with your partner or you're cuddling up on the couch with your kid or, you know, you're sharing it with your friend. That can be lovely. Probably if you're watching like, I don't know, Gladiator and Vikings and I don't know what else, Lord of the Rings, you know, stuff like that regularly on a daily basis, probably not going to be very restful. But reading a book is going to be way better because you aren't exposed to the blue light rays from a screen. And what I do when I do watch Netflix is I have they're called blue light blocking glasses. So essentially I wear them at nighttime if I am using a computer or if I'm watching TV, and that just blocks out the light rays that are coming from the screen that can shunt melatonin production, which is your sleepy hormone that helps you to get into a deep restful sleep. But then like daily stuff, how much time do your teachers have like for lunch breaks, or they don't really get lunch breaks?
Not
like in terms of
you might get 15 minutes, but in that 15 minutes, you've got to eat, go to the toilet, because the other half of the lunch break, you're probably on duty or you've got to cook and prep things. So we're talking short amounts of time.
Okay. Because, I mean, there are things that you can do. Even closing your eyes for 2 minutes can be really resting. And by closing your eyes, it's also like just blocking out stimulation that you might have from the environment, that if you just sat down for 2 minutes, you're not quite getting that deep rest. There's heaps of apps too that have really short meditations or breathwork sessions. So I think that this would be useful if you do feel like your body or your mind is sending you some strong signals throughout the workday to try and get a little bit of a reset during the day. But then I think after work, if you could, like personally for me, when I'm finishing my workday, shutting the computer down, not talking to people, I will go for a walk on the beach or in the bush. And it is lovely. I do it pretty slowly. Old people pass me. So it's really like it's energy output, but it feels really resting and restorative for me. And I'm getting like some nature therapy as well. So if someone lives somewhere where they can be outside and get some rest that way, that is great. And I really think like just really prioritizing a good sleep routine is going to help. So there's heaps of different ways that we can look at sleep. The research around sleep that is most consistent in all the studies and like sleep experts is going to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time is going to be most restorative than anything else that you do. By the way, that wouldn't be like 2 a.m. in the morning and waking up at 10 a.m.
No.
I mean, you would have missed class by then if that was the case. And finding out like how many hours you need as well. So usually it's somewhere between 7 to 9 hours for people. I'm 9 hours and sometimes I'll sleep for 10 hours and I love it. It is so good. I do find that for my physiology, if it's less than 8.5, I don't feel as optimal as what I would on 9. So I'm like so boundaried and so fierce around my sleep and my sleep quality. And if that's something within someone's control that they kind of just implement and start looking at, then that will then set them up with more batteries in the tank to be able to do what they need to do during the workday so that then that rest and recovery is happening again. And good nutrition, like making sure that you're eating regularly, not skipping meals, even if you have 5 minutes to be able to eat. Surely teachers can eat while they're teaching. The kids wouldn't care. Or is there like a rule around that?
There isn't. When I first started teaching, I never did because the kids aren't allowed to eat in class. So I thought, well, if they can't eat, then I can't eat. Although if a child ever came up to me and said, I'm hungry, that often happens with little people. They might say, I'm hungry like half an hour before recess. And I'd always say, oh, go and get a snack from your bag. That's fine, because no one can learn when they're hungry. But now they have crunch and sip or their little fruit break in the middle of the morning. So I encourage teachers, like, have you crunch and sip at the same time.
Do it
as
at the same
kids.
time.
Like, have that. That's a great little energy burst. We have it for them. There's loads of research behind it. It's going to benefit you as well reminder to drink your water, have a piece of fruit or some vegetables. And then, they can eat in class. They could eat at lunchtime, but it's all about planning. One thing that teachers are really good at is routine. So how you were just saying, have a good sleep routine, go to bed at the same time every night and wake up the same time every morning. I think now teachers, like, if this is new to you and you're listening to this, they're going to ace that because they're amazing at routine.
Okay. It's like, yeah, that's so good. I just had a thought. It was a client that I worked with a few years ago, a teacher. Now, she was forgetting to drink, but maybe even eat. So she actually got the kids on board to help her to remember. I think one of the strategies that she had was anytime the kids put their hands up, she drank water, and she told them to, so that if they put their hands up and they didn't see her drinking from the drink bottle, they'd be like, Miss, you need to drink your water.
It's really cute.
It is cute. And it's kind of doing two things. It's one, it kept her accountable. It also helped her to remember, because she was struggling to remember stuff like that. But it also teaches the little people too that the teacher is important. And then also, if I'm important and I'm drinking water, then that's going to be good for you too. And it will actually seed really healthy habits in the kids that you're teaching without actually teaching them health.
Absolutely. Everything we do, we're modeling. So you don't want to be going in dehydrated and hungry, because that just leads to anger. Well, in my case, that leads to anger.
Hungry.
Dehydrated. But you're also teaching the kids that that's important. You need to fuel yourself with good food, with water.
Yeah,
absolutely. Philly, what's one thing that you would love teachers to understand about their bodies and about burnout that could completely change how they care for themselves long term?
Your body isn't fighting against you, it's fighting for you. So if you are noticing signs, signals, and you're either hating on them or you're ignoring them, which can also happen like when you feel like your body's fighting you, it's less like, oh, if I just ignore that and move on, then that's fine. But it is a beautiful reframe and a way to actually start looking at your body's not fighting against you, it's fighting for you. And so when you start befriending your body and even any signals or symptoms that are popping up, it will take you to where you need to go in order to create a beautiful relationship with your body and with yourself. Like an example for that, again, if we use the example of low energy, where it's just like I keep crashing in the afternoon. Okay, so if my body is fighting for me, what's it trying to say to me? Oh, yeah, okay, I skipped lunch. And actually, that's a pattern for me. I often skip lunch, or I like huff it down really fast and then I'm not allowing it to digest. Maybe that might be like for a teacher that's like, I feel really bloated by the end of the day. Well, yeah, it's probably because you're eating in a really rushed way, trying to like get all the things done. So anytime you're getting the sensation, essentially this is like what I do on a daily basis. I don't have chronic health issues anymore, but my body still speaks to me sometimes when it needs something. So if I've been working for too long on the computer, early sign might be my eyes just start getting really heavy, and it's almost like I have to put my glasses on, and I don't wear them very often. So the moment that I'm putting my glasses on, I'm like, body, you're not fighting against me. You're not preventing me from trying to finish the thing that I'm trying to do. You're actually fighting for me. You're saying, hey, let's shut the computer and let's get out to the beach and have some fun.
I love that reframe. I think that is so helpful, because I think sometimes I know, I'm just thinking from experience. It's like my mind against my body. It's like a fight.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women will probably feel the same out there.
Yes,
so
but at the end of the day. Yeah. And I mean, the fear there is, what if I gave all sovereignty to my body? Am I going to be able to do the things that I do? And that's like a real, it's like I'll be going to the toilet every 10 minutes if I do that. And if that's happening, I'm like, there is adrenal fatigue, because you shouldn't be going to the toilet that often. But I mean, I don't have any great wisdom around that besides trust the process. that your body will only guide you in beautiful ways and it wants the best for you. And it might look like how you teach looks differently. Like I have a client who has done a lot of changing up. So she's still teaching, she's still working the same hours, she's still working with the same people, but there's a few things that she's done that have really made a difference. So she doesn't go to the staff rooms anymore during like the breaks because she just felt like she needed time alone to decompress. She was recovering, by the way, from chronic fatigue and long haul COVID. So she needed to make some drastic changes, either like quit work so she could heal or change up how she was teaching and being in the workplace in order to heal. And then there were other things like just lowering expectations. It's like, what if I did a 50-50 job? What if I did like do I really need all the extra bits and pieces in order to teach this to the kids? And so it was scary, but she started experimenting with it. And I always said, like, if it doesn't work out and things just like come crashing down around you, you can go back to the old strategy. Totally fine. But let's just experiment with it. See if we can change it up. And just taking up more leadership in her classroom with her TAs as well. So she was finding that she was kind of like, didn't want to, push them, didn't want to ask them to do things, kind of like the people pleasing patterns that were showing up. Yeah. And so then they had lack of leadership, but then she was also getting resentful because they weren't doing things that were really helpful that she needed. And so, she just started stepping into being the leader in her classroom and delegating better. And like she's thriving, she's improving, she's healing, things are getting better. And so sometimes it's small tweaks, but they make massive changes in the way you're being and doing things.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing that teachers have got in their corner is that they're in charge of their own classroom.
Yeah.
What happens inside those four walls is up to you. One thing that I always find super overwhelming is that beginning of the day when all the kids are coming in, and sometimes there's kids they want to tell you something because something's happened at home or they've got a message and they need to blurt out. There's notes coming in. Back in the day, they used to bring in money. They don't do that anymore because everything gets paid online. But like there's a lot going on first thing in the morning. And I always found that super overwhelming. So one of the strategies I put into place for myself was to get my kids to silent read. And then if they needed to come and tell me things, they could. But the rest of the class knew the expectation. They were unpacking their bags. They were sitting down at their desks. They were reading. And it just gave me just a couple of minutes to sort of gather myself. And that's a great strategy if you're in the middle of the day and you need to gather yourself. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, everybody, we're going to do 10 minutes of just quiet reading to ourselves, and even saying to them, I'm just going to gather my thoughts. I'm going to gather myself. And then we're going to get back into this straight after. You're A, showing them strategies for themselves, but B, you're giving yourself that little break before you get to the point where it's like terrible. You're burnt out. I also have another friend that she didn't like going to the staff room because of the negativity around it. So what she would do with one of her good friends at school was every Friday they would just have like a mini staff room date in one of their classrooms, and they would get to lunch, and then they'd meet in their classrooms and they'd chat and they'd have a really good time and they could talk about whatever they wanted because no one else was around. She was still getting that socialization but not having to go to the staff room.
Yes. I love that. Just another little thing, again, thinking about a similar client, but she was also finding that just dealing with parents was triggering.
Yeah.
Again, it was like around a judgment piece. It's like, if they're complaining or they, want something different, then it's a reflection that I'm not doing very good. So she had a couple of mantras that anyone can try on. I'm more than good enough. I'm doing a great job. I'm doing my best. It's not perfect and I don't want it to be because that's burnout. And you know what? If they're happy, it's a them issue, not a me issue. And then literally doing almost like a visualization ritual where you put a little bubble around yourself and you kind of just give their stuff back to them.
Yeah. With parents, it's always about them.
Yeah.
And never about the teacher.
Yeah.
And it's parents' job to advocate for the children, their own children. That's their job. So if they're in your classroom advocating for their child or asking for something, that's great. They're doing their job. And your job is to teach the 20, 25, 30 kids in front of you. And you can just do your very best.
Yeah. That is all you can do. And when you think about all the different personalities and not just the kids, but the parents, it's like there's no way you could make everyone happy.
No.
At any given time.
I know. It would be nice.
It would be nice.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
So, Philly, we have got a little tradition on our podcast that we ask a random question at the end. It's actually been left from a previous guest, which we don't tell you who it is. And I've got your question that I will ask somebody in the future. But the question that's been left for you is, what is your best memory from school?
Oh, it's so hard because I've got lots of good ones. Are we talking about primary school or
if you can say
high
if
school?
You could say primary school, that would be great because most of our listeners are primary school teachers.
Yeah, that's what I thought. The memories that popped up is hanging out with my best friend, Crystal Birdie, playing football with the boys at lunchtime.
Oh, how fun.
It was fun. It just felt really freeing and, it was kind of nice to get like boys' attention and stuff as well. But it was like, yeah, we can play with the boys. Like, we're good at football. So that would like definitely friendship stuff. But I've got a few key primary school teachers as well. Mr. Lindsay, he was super tall, had like bright curly orange hair. I don't know if he followed the syllabus, but everything that he taught was always fun. It was very artistic or musical. I remember a whole term we did like everything to do with chess. That's not on the curriculum now, is it? Or is it?
No, I don't think it ever was, but I bet he had little ways of like...
Little ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was great. Like I had him 2 years in a row and that was the best.
Oh, that's awesome. And there you go, teachers. It's all about how you're making your students feel and those memories of what you're doing with them, not ticking off those curriculum boxes, even though we know we have to do it, but we will get there.
Yeah.
Billy, thank you so much. You've shared so much with our teachers today and with me as well. Like as you were going along, I was thinking about little changes that I can make in my life and little adaptations as well. Where can teachers find you and connect with you further?
Awesome. Thank you. So our website is probably the best place that has all the avenues to finding us in different other ways. So www.chrisandphilly.fm. Chris, by the way, is my husband. I'm sure the link and the spelling will be in the show notes. And yeah, on the website, I mean, we've got a contact us page. We've got links to Instagram, Facebook, if you like to follow people through that way. But we've got lots of free resources on the website as well. One of the most commonly used one is our Ending Body Burnout Method assessment, which is a scorecard or a quiz. You answer a bunch of questions and it rates how burnt out you are and also looks at where the 3 main root causes are for you. And then it gives you a report at the end and some suggestions for implementation. And I would also love to give your listeners a free copy of my book, The Ending Body Burnout, a physical one that will get posted to you in the mail.
Oh, wow.
Yay! Yeah, free copy. You can just pay for the postage. But yeah, if anyone wants to grab a copy of that, I'll give you your listeners a special link for that and they can, because that's not on the main website. It's only for special people.
Okay, so scroll down to the show notes and it'll say special book link and I will link it there.
For special people.
Yes. That's amazing. I think this could be the first gift we've ever had on the podcast.
Oh, lovely.
So
it is
awesome.
It is nice because I find that we don't get a lot of things in the mail these days.
No, we don't. And if burnout's something that you feel like you're struggling with or you're on that, we were talking about the spectrum, you're on one edge of the spectrum and you don't want it to go too far, the book is probably a really, really good start.
Yeah, it'll basically take you through our 4-step method to ending your body burnout. And there's lots of, there's some things that you would need to do with a practitioner like me, but there's heaps of gold nuggets in there too that you can just take and start implementing.
Yeah. What about if people want to work with you? How do they do that?
Yeah, cool. So the main way that we work with clients to get to the root, we call it the root cause. We're going deep and working on both any body systems that are in balance. So that's, using functional lab testing and therapeutic protocols and also working on rewiring deeper patterns that led the burnout to the first place. So our program is called the Ending Body Burnout Method. We've just closed doors, but next time we open doors will be in June. So you can pop your name down on the wait list if you're interested for that.
Fabulous. We'll put a link to the wait list as well in the show notes. So we're going to have a whole heap of goodies in the show notes ready for you. Billy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all your beautiful work too.
Wasn't that interview wonderful? I mean, the topic of burnout isn't so wonderful, but it's really good to have under our belts the knowledge to help ourselves, the knowledge of what to look out for, to ensure that we don't get to that really extreme phase of burnout, because that's not going to do you any favors, and it most certainly isn't going to do the kids in your class any favors either. Now, all of those links that we spoke about at the very end are in the show notes. And if you want to grab a copy of Feely's book, all you need to do is pay for the postage. Amazing. We love gifts and teachers deserve them. I'm going to pop that special link in the show notes too, so go and check it out there. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope that you're not feeling too burnt out, but if you are, don't worry. There is help, and I hope that this episode has actually helped you with a few little bits and pieces that you can do. Thank you for being here, and as always, there are rainbows ahead, my friend, and together we're unstoppable.
Thanks for choosing to listen to Rainbow Skies for Teachers, the go-to show dedicated to teachers who want to make a big difference in education.
If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a 5-star review or share the episode with a friend, because together we're
Unstoppable.